Hello and welcome back. I'm Rob and you're watching Outside in the 515. Today, we're in the shop, gonna build some cool stuff. We are going to be building our firewood bundler. And I might have said it in an earlier video, I'm gonna kind of take a design cue from Wolf Ridge and then I'm gonna kind of give it a twist. I like Wolf Ridges. The only thing I don't like about it is I wish it had a backing plate, so that way when you load your wood, it's got a plate to back it to. So, but I do like the using, I think it's the 4-inch wrap. So I'm gonna build this to where you'll wrap it, and then you have to pick it up and turn the bundle, set it back down in. I'm gonna build it 12 by 12, and I'm gonna do it in a way, and I'll explain more as I'm building, but I'm gonna do it in a way where I don't have to cap off the tubes that way I don't fill with water and all that good stuff. I don't want to have to waste time cutting down little pieces to go in the tube and then weld all that, because I'm a little anal retentive when it comes to that stuff. So if I would weld it, I would want to sand it all down, and I don't want to waste a whole bunch of time on fabricating this. We really need to start selling some wood. So what we're gonna do is, and I'll show you, I gotta get some stuff, a piece of plate, plasma cut down, and then we'll start cutting our tubes. So here we go. So like I've said in previous videos, I've got all the material to do it. So I had this piece of plate that is 10 gauge thick. So 10 gauge, if you're not familiar, is just a little thicker than 1/8 inch. So I'm gonna be marking that up. And then this is one of the tubes. It is a 2x2 outside diameter tube, and I believe it is 14 gauge tube. So it's fairly thin, that way it'll be fairly lightweight. Like I said, I've got it, and then I got another piece back here on the steel rack for my legs if I need it. So we're gonna fire up the Ellis and get those cut down. I don't even know what model this is. They don't ever say it. I think it's the 1600. I think it's the Ellis 1600. We're gonna fire that up, and then I'm gonna fire up the Hypertherm 45 XP plasma cutter, and we'll get started. So, hope you enjoy. First, I need to get the soapstone sharpened up. And it's important when you're cutting with a torch or a plasma cutter that you use a soapstone, because it doesn't burn away. I like Sharpies for most things, but there's just sometimes soapstones are must. So this is a scrap plate I had, and I've only got one good factory edge on it here. So, and I don't know what I'm looking pretty all right on this side. This cut here is kind of wonky. So what I'm gonna do is I am going to get a measurement, because I think, like I said, it's gonna be 12 by 12. So I believe this is 12 and a half, just under 12 and a half. So I'm not gonna worry about cutting it down to exactly 12. And then it is just 15 7/8. So I'm probably gonna cut it down another inch just to get rid of this little wonky edge I got right here. So I'm gonna cut it down to there, and then we'll, that's what we use for the backing plate. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take two of the 2-inch square tubes, and they're gonna go down, and they're gonna be empty at the bottom. And then in between it, I'm gonna go with a 12-inch piece. So I'll probably be hanging off the edges just a little bit with my tube, but that's okay. Like I said, I'm really just using this for a backing plate. Okay, so I got my piece all marked up. I got a little guide that I use. I've got a piece of, I keep a couple scrap pieces of 1/4-inch aluminum angle iron. They work good for like a cutting guide with a plasma cutter. So I've got it all figured out where it needs to be, and I'm gonna get the air compressor turned on, or yeah, get the compressor turned on, get the plasma cutter turned on, and we'll get to cutting. Okay, so I got it cut down. I just need to clean the edge up. And what I like to do is I like to figure out where I'm, where I'm at, and keep this aluminum piece as a straight edge. And then, because I am not very sure-handed with the plasma cutter or a torch, even with the guide, I've still got a little bit over here. So I'm gonna leave this as a guide so I can run a flat disc down it and get a smooth edge. And then I'll have to do the same on this side and this side. Like I said, this side here is a factory edge, so we're good there. So we're gonna get to clean this up here. Okay, so we've got a pretty smooth edge all the way down. So I'm not gonna bore you with doing the other two sides, but that's pretty much how I do it. I wish I had a shear, big enough for 10 gauge, but that would take up most of my shop, so I'm not gonna pay somebody to shear it, so you do with what you got, right? So, okay, stop. Okay, so now we're all squared up. Now what I gotta do is I gotta take the little lip off the corners from where I've sanded, and then we'll be ready to start cutting some tubes. Okay, so the plate's done. Now we can start cutting tubes, so hang tight. Okay, so now what we gotta do is we gotta cut this tube down to make the cradles. So I'm gonna need 2 of them at 12 inches wide, 4 of them at 12 inches long. I need 2 of those, and then 4 at 14 inches, because I'll show you. So we're gonna get the tripod set up over by the saw, and we're gonna get to cutting. Hang tight. Okay. Saw is Ready? Got it? All right. Okay, little trick, don't extend it out, stop. Don't extend it out so far.
Yeah.
Okay, right there. Just set it down.
Alright.
See? Now, when you mark this,
Uh-huh.
you want to mark as close to the edge as you can, but your tape's got to be straight.
Alright.
Are you on 14?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Give me this. Unclamp it and push it on through. Okay, so we got all of our tubes cut for the cradle. I'm going to build the cradle first. So we've got 2 pieces. We got 3 pieces at 12 and 4 at 14, and I'll show you why. All right. So there's going to be 2 of these cradles, and I cut these at 14, and you'll see why. So my cradles are going to look like that. Are you getting all this in the shot? Okay. Cradles are going to look like that. So see if you can see that or not. 12 inches. Okay. There'll be 2 of those. And then I cut another one. And this is what will tie these 2 together. So they'll be 12 inches apart with that backing plate behind it. And then I'll put the wrap out here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get all these edges cleaned up, and then I got to mark where my center is on all of these, or on 2 of these I got to find out where my center is, and then I need to mark all of this stuff so I can take all the mill scale off and I know where to go. So let's get started. Okay, so these things are all cleaned up. They're ready to weld, so I'm going to go ahead and get them fixtured up. I'm going to get the Millermatic 255 plugged in and turned on, and we'll get to welding. Okay, so we've got it all fixtured up, as you can see. Sheila, pin in on the square. As you can see, it is perfectly square on that side and on this side. Okay, perfectly square. This is where this table comes in handy for fixturing stuff up. I do have fixturing details and stuff I could use, but a lot of times it's just faster just to, you know, clamp one tube down, throw a square on it, clamp the other one down. And these clamps, they make better ones. I went to Harbor Freight and I think I paid, I usually buy these when they're on sale for like $2 a piece. And then what I do is it's usually got the ones that's got the little clamp that sticks out. Well, I cut that off, and then I went and bought 5/8 shouldered bolts, because that's what hole size these holes are, is 5/8. I ground a little groove in it, and then I TIG welded these on. And that way when you bust one or you tack one to the part that you're trying to clamp down or whatever reason, you're only out a few bucks compared to $60, $70 for the other ones. So I'm not saying don't buy good clamps. I have good clamps. These are what's called Bessie clamps, and I'll be using these later, but these are great. I paid upwards of like $69 a piece for just this one, and I have multiples. So the good expensive clamps have their place, but where you can scrimp on the clamps, do it, because you'll go through a lot. So I'm gonna throw a couple tacks on, and then I'm gonna check for square again, and then I'll pull it off and I'll tack the other side, and then we'll start welding. Okay, so good there. And we're still good there. Let's go ahead and take this off. I'm just going to turn it over and clamp it again, and then we'll turn it over, clamp it again, and then I'll put these welds on while it's clamped. So turn it over. That way it can't move. The welder sounded like I got it. Check the square again. We are a little out. That'll be all right. Right here. I'm happy with that. Okay, so that is that. Now I'm going to go ahead and throw these welds on, and we'll let that cool just a minute while it's still clamped down, and then we'll flip it over and do the same. Yep, there it went. I'm a little hot. Let's turn that down just a touch. There, we're cooking with gas. Alrighty. Sheila, fan in on my welds here. Okay, so that's what a nice looking MIG weld should be. Not much manipulation, just a straight push. This is where I blew through right here, but really it just looks like I filled the crater in a little bit more. So now I'm gonna turn it over. I'm gonna unclamp it, I'm gonna check for square, I'm gonna turn it over, and I'll get the rest of this one welded. gonna get a little bit of porosity coming. Okay, now I know I've been preaching straight push, but when you're over 15 degrees like this, and you're doing it downhill, it's exactly what it feels like. But I didn't have too much of an angle either way. I was pretty straight on with it. So, I'm gonna get, this one should be all right. What the battery's getting? Battery in my helmet's getting a little weak. Okay. So, can you see that weld okay?
Yeah.
That's what you want out of a MIG weld, okay? Your weld size is determined on the thickness of your steel, okay? So I think it's gonna be just fine. Okay, so there's one. We'll go ahead and I'll put you on a time lapse, fixturing up and tacking and welding the next one. So. Okay, so we've got, I had to sand down these welds so this plate would fit. We've got it all fit up and I've got it tacked in place for now. Now I got to put measurements on where I want welds, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to do 2 inches, 2 inches. I'm going to find the center, do 2 inches. Same thing on this side. Weld it here in the center there. So we'll get this on this way. We'll do 2 inches here. And we'll do 2 inches here. And then oops, I'm way off on that one. 6 1/4 should be. Yep. So then 2 inches here, 2 inches there. 6 1/4. 2, 2, and 2. Okay, so I'll throw some tacks on that, and then we'll get that welded down. Bit of a gap on that one, so let's see if we can close that gap up. Bingo. That one's good there. a bit of a gap there. I don't necessarily worry about that. It could be a warp in the plate. As long as the ends are good. And that's it. I'm not going to get too carried away, scrape and spatter, because I think I'm going to sandblast this all down with paint. So, yeah, that's what that looks like. I really don't want to put any welds in here because I don't want, you know, the wood to kick or anything like that when I bundle it. So now I got to find the center of that. Get that marked. No, it won't ride. Okay, so I gotta mark. These are a fabricator's dream. I love these things. These are squares, like fixturing squares, fabricating squares from a company called Fireball Tool. They make these in aluminum or steel. I've got both. I prefer the aluminum ones, but the steel ones are nice for when you're welding aluminum because you can't weld steel to aluminum and vice versa. These are handy as crap. I love these things. Glad I bought them. I gotta mark the center again. Eight. Like I said, this doesn't have to be perfectly square, but you know, you got to take a little pride in what you do too. Center. Hold it there for just a split second. Throw a couple tacks on this side. side. That up and out of the way. I'll bring this one back. And I think I've already got it marked. This up, and then that should all line up. So I'll go ahead and get a tack. And I'll put a little better. Now I have a gun. Anything that'll work to square it. Guess I'm gonna have to throw a clamp and a clamp. Before I do, let's get a measurement. Okay. That idea won't work. Oops. I did not take into consideration the 2-inch tube here and the 2-inch tube here, and that left it at 16. So, I am going to cut that off. So I think for today, Sheila and I are going to call it a day, and I'm going to get another tube staged for all the legs, and I think we're going to call it. So we'll catch you tomorrow. All right, so it is day 2 of the bundler project, and I really shouldn't even say day 2. We only worked on it yesterday for about an hour. So I'm back here today. Getting a little bit of a late start because I sold a piece of equipment. I'll drop a picture of what I sold today. I sold one of my first chop saws that I bought when I decided to go into business for myself, and that was before I upgraded to that Ellis 1600 bandsaw. It was the Evolution, I think CS380 is the model number. It's an older saw that I don't even think Evolution makes it anymore. It was a good saw. It just didn't serve my needs. I needed something that I could switch to aluminum, stainless, mild steel, whatever I was using, and with that saw, you had to change the blade every time, and that was just a pain in the butt, and the blades were expensive. It took like I think it was a 14-inch blade, and they were about 80 bucks a pop. With this Ellis, my local steel supply house down the road, they sell Baco blades, and I think they're like 60 a piece, and I can cut anything I want with no switchovers. So it was just other than the price of the saw was dramatic, it was a no-brainer. I more than made up for the cost of the saw with the quality of the cuts and the speed of the cuts and all that. So anyway, I'll get you spun around here and show you what we're doing. I had a bit of a design change overnight in my head, so we'll get you turned around. I'll show you what we got. Okay, so this is what I was gonna do. This piece was gonna be in the middle, and then I was gonna have this piece here meet it, and that was gonna make my cradle. The problem is I didn't want the whole cradle to be a total of 16 inches because I'm only gonna do the 4-inch wraps on the outside. So I cut this the wrong length after I figured that out after I had it all tacked together. So I cut it off, and I cut 2 new pieces at 6 inches. And they're gonna go in there like that. and then this piece will meet it, and that'll give me a total length of 10 inches. And then that way I have 4 to 6 inches, depending on whatever splits I decide my bundles are going to be, which is probably going to be 16. So, but that gives me plenty of room out front here to wrap it. You'll put the one wrap on the one side, lift it up, spin it around, set it down, put the wrap on the other side. So I've already got these cut. I got the mill scale sanded down on these. I got the part cleaned up inside where this tube was already tacked. So I'm gonna get you set up here and I'm gonna get to work. I should also mention I'm by myself today. Sheila and Beth are running some errands, and they're gonna go see I think the Lilo and Stitch movie. So yeah, so I don't know how good these shots are gonna come out, so bear with me on that. That is that. Okay, so now we got the cradle all done. So now we got to work on the legs. So we're gonna let that cool down a minute. But what I'm gonna do is Sheila thought that this height here was good. I think it's too tall. So I don't remember the height of this. Let me turn you so you can see. There we go. Sheila thought that the height right here was good. And I let her decide because she's shorter than I am and she's gonna be doing more of the bundling, but I think it's still too tall. This table is, the bottom of it is 38.5, which is a perfect working height, but bundling, it's just, so I might make my legs at like 36. So that means this will be at 38. No, that didn't make it the same. If I want that at 3 foot, I'm gonna cut the legs at 34. Yeah, I'm gonna cut the legs at 34, and they're just gonna come off the center of this one and meet down. I'll put one in between, but it'll be longer. So I'll probably go, I don't know, 2 foot long on the base, and then I'll put 2 out the side. So, and then I'm gonna stagger it a little bit so that way it doesn't want to rock. So yeah, but I'm probably gonna just tack those on for now, and then we'll set it on the ground and we'll see how it shapes up. So hang tight. Alrighty, well, I've got the legs cut. I've got the support pieces in between them cut. I've got everything prepped for where it's gonna be. And all I gotta do now is get these legs tacked, and then we'll work on the foot pieces. So let me get my gear on, get you spun around, and we'll get to tacking. Check that again, we're good to go. Okay, that's tacked. That one. Close enough. See if that's still. Yep, you're still in the picture. Okay. And we are still square. So that is that. Now, let's flip this over and we'll get the next leg on. Boy, I could sure use the steel right about now. Ah, dummy. Mark your centers. Okay. Well, I don't have a clue what's going on, but I know this is right. Okay. That is that. Now, why is this so flippin' crooked? I think I'm going to take you guys off camera for this one. Can't show our mistakes, can we? But realism wouldn't be real if I did that, now would it? So, let's see what's going on here. Okay. Well, let me throw a couple more tacks. More tacks on that. Almost like the whole thing's twisted. This tube's twisted. Let's get a Bessie clamp. We might have to do 2 best clamps. Okay, I'm gonna have to reposition it here. There we go. We'll try that view. Now, probably better start with this one here. Okay. That one's somewhat close. This one should bring it from this end. Now, let's see if we can re-get this one. Oh, that's a popping tack. Did it go all the way? It did not. But this one is. So, let's get a tack on this. Okay. Now we're also going to have to, I don't know what's going on with that, but this is going to allow us. Dangity dang dang. It still ain't sucking it over enough. I'm going to have to double that up. Let's slide that over. Oh, we're almost there. Let's see if 2 of these will bring it tighter. Did that do it? That did it. Now, why am I bowed? I don't know if these are big enough. Nope. I need the next size bigger. I don't know if these. No, that ain't gonna work. We'll get rid of this helmet and get one of my bigger clamps. Yep, that's gonna work. Alrighty. We are tight, and I think we're square. So let's throw some tacks on it. Wrong way, dummy. I don't know. I think maybe my saw blade is getting a little weak because it was just not wanting to cut anything straight on this. So I think the next step is going to be to get this cross tube on, and then we'll get that figured out, how long I want to make that, because I don't want it to tip back, but I don't want it, I'm afraid it's going to be front heavy as well. So finding that middle ground is going to be kind of tough. But let me throw a tack there and there. And we are good to go. Pop, pop. Okay. So I'll bring you back when I get figured out what I'm gonna do. All right, so I got it figured out what I wanted to do with the legs. I've got it fixtured up on the table. I'll get you spun around and we'll go ahead and get it clamped. And I'll do a little more explaining when you see how I got it fixtured up. But I think this is gonna work out pretty good. So here we go. Okay, so what I got going on here is I utilized my fireball squares and the fixture table. And I just went ahead and clamped the table down, or the tubes down to the table, while also clamping the squares down so I can get good tacks on it. And then what I'll do is I'll take these off, clamp it back down. I'll put the welds across the top here, and then I'll let it cool for just a second. That should keep everything square. So let me grab my helmet and we'll get going. Okay, tacks are on. Let's get rid of these. Turn that. Clamp that down. Loosen this. Just turn that. The clamps stayed, or the squares stayed on there the right way. So get that clamped down good, and then I'm gonna go ahead and throw a couple more tacks over here and then weld it. Ah, you turd. Bit of a gap. That's how we handle that. Over here. Sometimes if you got a bit of a gap in something, you're going to do a little back and forth, which is okay. Better bite on it. But a little back and forth with your weave is okay. Like with any, outside of, you know, if you're tigging pipe and you're walking the cup, outside of that, you really don't want to do too much of a back and forth or an oscillating, or the more movement that you have with your puddle, the weaker it's going to be. Okay, let's throw a couple tacks over here. Okay. We're gonna let that cool just a couple minutes, and then I'll bring you back and we'll get the other side welded and we'll get it on the stand. So hang tight. Get this welded up. Breeze might be messing with me here. Okay, so I'll get these welds when it's on the piece, but I gotta make a mark. I don't remember what side I put my center marks on. Get rid of that. Let those go all the way down. These are the marks for centering it on the stand itself. Okay, and we'll get to fitting this. So I don't know if I want to use my squares or if I just want to, let's see, I want this. So, just like that. It's always good to go the opposite way with your clamps if you can. Okay, that'll make it flush there. Now, I think my tubes are cut just a little crooked, but yeah, that's how I'm gonna do it. So, get some tacks on her, and we can get this thing finished up tonight. I'm gonna go ahead and throw these welds on here just because it's gonna be the easiest. Okay, that's that. Okay, well, I got it up on the table. I'm gonna probably put this on a time lapse so I can jam out some tunes while I'm welding. It just seems to keeps my rhythm a little better if I got a good beat going. So we'll spin you around and we'll get to welding. And that is that. It is fabricated. It doesn't look too terrible. It sits pretty flat on the ground. So for just a wood bundler, it'll be all right. I'll spin you around and show you what it looks like. So there it is. There it is in all its glory. Outside in the 515 wood bundler number 1. But that is definitely it for the day. Tomorrow I'm ready for a shower. Tomorrow I'm gonna come over, and this will be in another video altogether, but I'm gonna come over and I'm gonna sandblast it, and I'll show you all the welds and all that at that time or after I paint it, because there was some oil or whatever. I really wished I would have just sandblasted the tubes and then cut it, but I didn't. So there's a lot of spatter all over it. So I'm gonna sandblast it and paint it tomorrow. So like I said, that'll be a whole other video, but I'd say it's Miller time, but this is all I had in the fridge. Sheila drinks Coors, so I guess I'll have a can of moose piss. You know, since they talk about the water from the Rockies and all that, and all the moose pissing it downstream, so I'm just kidding. So it is beer o'clock. So pretty good project. I'm pretty pleased. I'll when we start using it, I'll do another video of us making a few bundles and show you why I did what I did on it. The only thing I didn't put on it was a hook for the wrapper itself. And I didn't do that because I don't know what I'm gonna use yet. And really, where I left the tube holes open, I think those will be big enough just to stick it up in there like that. So I probably don't need to add anything else. So, and then I think when I get the wood yard set up and I get that all back in the back, I'll probably, have a station set up for it, and I'll probably get some tent stakes and stake it to the ground. Or I might get a couple 2x6s. Nah, but that'll make it sit too high. Yeah, I'll think about that on my own time, not on your guys' time. So, yeah, drop me a comment if you got any questions on any of the tools I used or any of my procedures or anything like that. Like I said, I used the Ellis 1800 or Ellis 1600 bandsaw, Metabo grinders for prepping all the steel, the Millermatic 255, which I love that machine. But I probably should have, when I welded that, I probably should have turned the C25 tank on and short arc welded it instead of trying to pulse weld it with the C10 gas. I need to start doing that more, because that C10 gas is a little pricier than the C25. And what I mean by C10 and C25, for those that don't know, that's the carbon content, okay? Or So the carbon, my mind is drawing a blank. The carbon dioxide, because it's argon and CO2. So the C means there's 10% CO2, 90% argon. Use that for pulse MIG, and you can get spray transfer. The C25 means it's 75% argon, 25% carbon dioxide. And I'm probably gonna have to make sure I'm saying that right. And that's more for like your short arc MIG, like what most of you would have in your homes. I just like running the pulse MIG just because it's just, you don't have to oscillate or back and forth as much unless you have a gap. I just like that straight pushed, clean, robot looking weld. You can argue with me all you want about it, how you want that weld to look like a stack of dimes. That only pertains to TIG welding. It really does. And you don't, when you're TIG welding, you don't get that from weaving. That's from when you're dipping the rod into the puddle. That's where you get that stack of dimes. So with MIG and stick, most of stick, like if you're running 60-10 rod, you're gonna weave that back and forth a little bit because it digs so hard. 60-10 digs so hard. So you're gonna fill as you come back in. But you know, if you're running, you know, 70-18 or 60-13 or 70-14, you're gonna just straight drag that. If you're MIG welding, you can do a little back and forth, but you don't want to see that stack of dimes. Those guys that spend all that money on those car parts that are MIG welded like that, I wouldn't trust it. I've done destructive testing on welds, and just a straight pushed MIG weld is the strongest, and in my opinion, it looks the best. You know, if you're not filling a gap and you have to weave, you don't have very steady hands, and maybe you don't want to be doing this for a living. But anyway, I want to thank you all for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment. Click all the bells and whistles, and we'll catch you on the next one.